Posted by user shalalazen. We both heard his voice. This happened several years ago when I was in my early 20s. My older brother was stricken with a very painful neuropathy that was incurable and spread rapidly. If we were out and a breeze so much as blew across his skin, he would get physically ill or start to cry. The doctors tried prescribing medications and nerve-blocking implants, but nothing was working. And soon the damage was going to spread to his neck and voice box, rendering him mute and eventually paralyzed. It pains me to say that I wasn't even surprised the night I got a call from our mother that he had taken his own life. Over the following months, Mom would tell me stories about letter lights in a store that would spell out his name if you rearranged them just a bit, or a man she spotted through a crowd that looked just like him, then seemed to vanish into thin air. On her birthday, a sign outside a school said "Happy Birthday," followed by his name, as if he had left it there for her. I felt so sad for her. It seemed like she was reaching for any sign of him anywhere she could. More time went by, and I had broken things off with my fiancé, moved back to my parents temporarily while I figured out what I wanted to do next. I was in my old room, right down the hall from where my brothers had been. I watched TV until around 3 a.m., which I know because they had a really obnoxious bright red digital clock in the guest room. Then I finally decided to go to sleep. I got up and closed the curtains, then sat back down on my bed. I was about to turn off the lamp when I heard someone say my name fairly loud. My brother was the furthest thing from my mind at the time, but once I heard it, I had to shake off that it sounded like him. It also struck me that it sounded like he was in the room with me, but I knew my dad must be outside the door, calling for me for some reason. I was a little irritated, but I got up and went to the door. When I opened it, it was pitch black in the hallway and no one was there. I was terrified. I closed and locked the door and sat up in my bed with my lamp on until the sun came up. I decided not to tell my mom about it, since she had been suffering from so many coincidences already. She asked me how I slept, and I said not at all. She said she hadn't either. The strangest thing had happened. She said it must have been 3 o'clock in the morning, and she swears she wasn't even asleep at that time. But she heard my brother's voice, plain as day, say, "Mom." I never told her what happened to me. I've read that people like to take comfort in these kind of events, but I've honestly never been so scared in my life. Nothing like that has ever happened again. But even 10 years later, I still get creeped out late at night and pray that I won't hear that voice again.
Welcome everybody, my name is Mercolium and this is r/paranormal. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can catch all of these wonderful paranormal stories. And if you liked what I did, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Otherwise, give me the big fist down. Now, let's take a stroll down the dark path.
This one's going to be a little bit longer, so tuck in and bear with me. Posted by user Sandman79. My short-lived career as a night watchman in a historic cemetery. I thought I'd share some of my experiences from my short time as the night watchman at a very old historic cemetery. I worked the 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. shift. The cemetery generally closed at 6 p.m. So around 5:30, I'd lock the main gate and would start driving through the cemetery to notify any visitors that we'd be closing soon. I'd instruct them to park in a line in front of the locked main gate. When my drive through the grounds was complete, I would unlock the main gate, everyone would leave, and I would lock the gate behind them. So one day, I'm in the middle of my final drive-through and see an old lady slowly walking the sidewalk alongside a mausoleum. The mausoleum was hundreds of feet long, about 20 feet tall, and had no breaks in it. It was one long stretch. The road ran directly alongside the sidewalk of the mausoleum. So I pulled up behind the lady to tell her that we were closing. Get out of my car, take my eyes off her for a split second as I'm getting out of the car, and when I shut the door and look up, she's gone. Completely vanished. I didn't think anything paranormal at first. I just thought maybe I lost sight of her. But the sidewalk and road were completely empty. I ran all the way down to check the back of the mausoleum, but no one was there. Across from the mausoleum was a whole field of graves, and I eagle-eyed the shit out of every row. Not a soul in sight. I finish up my round and sit in my car the rest of the night in a well-lit area. I saw a fully visible person. I know it. No tricks of light, no hallucination, plain as day. This encounter seemed to break open the proverbial dam because, after this, I had numerous unexplainable occurrences. If you guys would like to hear any of those, I'll gladly update the post with another few stories. Updated with a few other stories. Normally my then girlfriend, now wife, would drop by around 8 p.m. and bring me dinner since I couldn't really leave. I never told her about my experiences because I didn't want to freak her out. As I'm walking her back to the car to leave, I see her reach back and touch her ponytail, then look around with a look on her face. I ask her what's wrong, and she says nothing. Must got my ponytail caught on a tree branch. I felt something. So I pointed out to her that the closest tree was 20 feet away, and that's impossible. Then she gets real pale and says it felt like someone ran their hand through her hair from front to back and then pulled on the ponytail. We were both pretty freaked out, and she left. She never came and brought me dinner again. I was originally hired because the cemetery had a period of time where they experienced some grave robbers and people breaking in to perform satanic rituals. I was 21 years old, doing this as a side job with no gun, no weapons, or anything like that. I was given a barcode scanner and was told to drive through the entire cemetery every hour or so to patrol and to scan each of the pre-positioned barcodes to prove I was actually doing my job. Now this cemetery was massive, pretty much broken into 3 parts: the newer part, the historic part, and the famous part where celebrities and other famous people were buried. I did this routine once and never did it again, going so far as to break the damn barcode scanner so I didn't have to do it. While I was driving, it was pitch black. Coming around a long curved road, my headlights picked up what I could have sworn were a pair of legs walking across the path, but only up to the knee. Shoes, pants, knees, then absolutely nothing. I stopped dead in the road and just watched this pair of legs with no body cross the road 10 feet in front of me. I put the car in reverse, did what felt like the longest K-turn of my life, and then noped straight back to the parking lot. Other quick things were lesser experiences of just hearing strange noises, seeing floating lights in the cemetery after I know for sure everyone was gone, weird animal noises that I couldn't recognize, etc. I'm a bit busy now, but in a few hours I'll post the last story, which is the one that pretty much convinced me to quit. Thanks for reading and replying. Update 2. I'll make this the last of it, but I could write for hours. 1. The guy who worked the day shift, which was 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., was a grimy dude. We'll call him Bart. Part of our job was to go around the cemetery and check the graves for personal effects left by family members and remove them. Many people left things like toys for children who had passed away, birthday cards, mementos, etc. I personally hated this policy and refused to enforce it. Who was I to take a dead child's toy fire engine and throw it away? But Bart had this habit of scouring the cemetery for things he deemed valuable and would take them home instead of throwing them away or bringing them to the office to be picked up by the family. In the short time I worked there, Bart's mental state deteriorated. He started spending hours there, even after his shift was over, walking around the cemetery and drinking heavily. He seemed attached and even more out there than when I had first met him. Eventually, I didn't see him for a week or so. I asked about him and my boss said he just no-called, no-showed and never heard from him again. I often wondered if he developed some type of attachment from bringing so many objects home he shouldn't have. 2. Lastly, the experience that led me to quitting. Once Bart stopped showing up, I picked up his Saturday morning shift. It was a quiet day, so I pulled my car around back of the old chapel to take a nap. The chapel was surrounded by 12-foot high hedges, so I figured it was a good spot to park for an hour and shut my eyes. I fall asleep and wake up to see my car completely surrounded by dead people. So real, so vivid, so much detail. They were all pressed against the glass and windshield. They had the outfits on they were buried in, suits, dresses, but all dirty in different stages of decomposition. No one spoke, no one moved. They all just stared like I was some zoo exhibit. Then I woke up. I had been asleep, and it was a dream. The thing is, it felt so real. I've never had a dream so real, so vivid before or after. I took it as a message. I called my boss and quit as soon as I left at 4 p.m. I go back to that cemetery from time to time because I have 3 grandparents and an aunt buried there. I never linger too long though, and always make sure I'm out long before it gets dark. Thanks for all the positive vibes and upvotes. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed my posts. Posted by user blurredrevalation. Haunted Asylum. Right, so I live in New Zealand, and have recently moved out of the most haunted place in New Zealand, King Seat Abandoned Psychiatric Hospital. Now they rent out buildings for commercial and residential purposes. There's also a scream park here called Spookers. So I lived in one of the old male nurses' wards, converted into a boarding home. Here are some of the events that took place. The possessed toy. At around 4 a.m. I was downstairs in the lounge, binge watching on Netflix. A toy kid's cart bike thing next to me out of nowhere started making beeping noises and lighting up. I ignored it, thinking it was a glitch as it was old. Then it started sounding all warped and up, almost like multiple alien voices were coming out of it. I called out, "Fucking cut it out, you spook," and it stopped. Pressed play on my video again and it started up right away. I get annoyed at this point and pick up the toy, go outside, and throw it in the trash. It stops as soon as I enter the house again. The morgue. So there's an abandoned morgue on the property as well. The pathway leading to it is overgrown with grass and weeds. It's hidden by trees and is in a spot which is hard to locate even during the day. Reports of uneasiness and fear when entering the morgue is common. I used to go there to smoke weed. It seemed like something had attached itself to me. Whenever I'd get upset, I'd go for a walk and just end up there. No memory of how I got there. I'd be sent into fits of rage and despair. Looking back, my behavior there was to say the least concerning. I'd go into the darkest room and close the doors behind me and make sure they were slammed shut, even though there were no door handles on the other side. I had to pry the doors open when I wanted to leave. I'd sit in the darkest corner and cry, howl, make demonic noises, and be sent into what seemed like to be an epileptic fit. Once, my friend came with me and others to smoke weed, and she fainted, turned sheet white, and landed in the funeral position. Arms crossed over the chest. My mental health deteriorated over time the more I visited the morgue. Only when I stopped going there did my mental health start to gradually get better. Villa 11. Now this place is pure evil. Locals say there is a demon trapped in there. I can vouch for this. Once when I was going for my typical daily walk/run, I was all of a sudden pulled by my chest towards the villa, to the point where I had to start running, as when I was trying to walk, I'd be half dragged as if someone was literally pulling me and running towards the villa. I have a witness to this, another resident who was driving past. Residents' behavior. Couples argue and break up, mental health patients worsen, people get depressed very easily, people relapse, people kill themselves. I must admit my behavior completely changed. Raging all the time, and I mean like Hulk. Me throwing, grabbing a knife and stabbing, self-harming and writing with my own blood on the walls, gibberish I still don't understand. This is common at Kingseat. You hear someone roaring with rage and throwing, and you're just like, eh. It's important to note that ever since I moved, I haven't had an episode once, and everyone has noticed the positive change in me. The energy. I've never felt anything like it other than once, and that was at a similar place to Kingseat. I'm not afraid of the dark at all, but I could not be by myself to walk outside at night, especially in the early hours of the morning. Reports of this are common. The noises. Unexplained noises all the time. When we did have the courage, me and my friend would walk around the massive property. In one property, we heard loud robotic cow noises right next to an occupied house. It was so loud. When we tried to locate the source, it seemed to move. We got sick of our curiosity, and one of my friends gave me a boost to look over the wall. As soon as my head popped up, it stopped. I could also hear babies crying in the morgue. We would hear footsteps start at one end of the top floor hallway and walk all the way down to the other end, despite none of the smoke doors being opened. Then it would start again at the other end. That's just some of what Kingseat is like.